Hi everyone. We're just waiting. My name is Regan Vargas. I'm the country head of operations of Filta. So we're just waiting for people to join in, and we're gonna start in exactly 4 minutes. Hi Vincent, Jervy. Hi everyone. Okay. While we're waiting for the others to join in, feel free to ask questions. Just leave it in the comment, and later our speakers will also be answering your question. Afternoon, Andrea. Interesting question, Jikon. So feel free, later we can ask our speakers so that they can give you more insights regarding that. Hi, Mary. Hi, Judy. So, all right. So I guess we should start. So for our first guest for today, I would want to introduce you to Aaron. So he's the general manager for Anzen. So definitely he will give you some good insights about the project management and how things work. So we'll just invite him in.
Hey guys, it's Jason here actually. But yeah, I'm the general manager at Anzen, so yeah, keen to chat
Sorry about
today,
that,
and
Jason. Sorry about
that's
that.
all good. Yeah, looking forward to the conversation today.
So I guess we should start by, I guess, like probably like a brief intro about Jason, like what you do for Anzen and like what you do for uh, project management.
Great. Yeah, so I'm the general manager at Anzen, like Regan mentioned. So um, I manage everyone essentially at our agency, but more specifically, I'm responsible for managing our production team. So we have our project manager, Trish, and then our production team beyond that, which is full of graphic designers, copywriters, marketing professionals, web developers. And my job is ensuring that all of those resources are able to work to their capacity, and that when it comes to the clients that we have, all of those resources are able to get their work done and get it done to budget and on time.
Nice. So it's been almost a year since like pandemic hit us. So how are you able to like how are you able to manage your teams and how did you work on those issues?
Sure. Yeah. So we're a global company, so we've got offices in Manila, in LA, and in Australia. So when the pandemic first hit, for us, it was a bit of a learning experience because a lot of our, obviously all of our staff were used to being in the office and they were used to working together. But we were a bit fortunate in that while our individual offices are used to working together, we actually kind of were used to working remotely in the fact that we did have teams in the Philippines, we did have teams in LA. So using project management tools like Asana was something that we were already really knowledgeable in, as well as using tools like Slack or Zoom to be able to have conversations. Those were tools that we used pretty much every day anyway. But there was a definite learning curve for us in that there's also that trust that you need to be able to have with your teams, when they're working from home, being confident that they are working when they need to be working, that they're being effective for all 8 hours and 9 hours that they're supposed to be being effective, but also that they're able to feel supported and that they, when they have questions or if they have needs, that they can get those answered or seen to. So there was a lot for us to learn, I think, in that respect. We weren't able to just go out and have lunch together anymore to be able to have that team building time. We had to organize those calls on Zoom. But it also allowed us to maybe build some better communities that we might not have built in between the offices. So with everyone working remotely, suddenly it was almost a level playing field. And, we could have our designers in Brisbane getting to know our digital producers in Manila much better because they were just working together digitally anyway.
Yeah, so very interesting. I'm sure there's like a lot of like attendees here who aspires to be project managers or want to like broaden their career in this industry. Like, can you like give like tips? Like, how do you describe what's the difference between a good project manager in your and a bad project manager? Like, any
Sure.
insights?
I think a good project manager needs to have a real, put a lot of emphasis on the goals of everyone, all the stakeholders, I suppose, that they're working with. So you have to be thinking about, on the one hand, you've got the staff and the resource in the company that you manage, right? Their well-being, their capacity, and their ability to get work done. But you also need to think about the company that you work for. That company needs to make a profit. It needs to, earn enough revenue to keep everyone working. And a project manager is a very important linchpin in between those two things. But on the one hand, you need to be looking at staff and resource and being really practical when you think about things like, can they actually get this work done in the deadline that's been considered? But then thinking about it from the business point of view as well, of saying, well, there's only scope for 10 hours to get this task done. And if someone goes over that 10 hours, then it actually costs the company money. And then that's a big problem. So I think the really important things for account managers, for project managers rather, is being able to balance those two things and being able to be a really great communicator in being able to communicate with resource and understand their difficulties and their challenges and what they need, and then communicating that to management so that you can find that middle ground of the resources being able to get their work done, but the company also being able to make a profit on that work being done, and the company that getting to exist because they are making a profit and not making a loss.
Yeah, that makes sense. Seems like a lot. So seems like there's a lot of things that a project manager does. But what's most fulfilling if you are a project manager? Is it like a fulfilling role, or is it just like work, work, work?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think it is because a lot of people rely on you. And I think that you can get a lot of fulfillment out of doing project management well because of that. I think that if you're the sort of person who likes helping people, project management can be a great career path because you spend a lot of your day looking at other people's needs and understanding, how people need to work and what they need to do to get out of their day. And, when you think about for yourself, when you want to have that sense of accomplishment and you want to have that sense of knowing that you've achieved something with your day, your week, your month, with your year, professionally, a project manager actually plays a really key role in helping you get that feeling by really planning out your days and your weeks and your months and year to achieve things, check things off your list, feel like you're being productive, feel like you're taking steps forward. So it can be absolutely a very demanding job, but it can also be a very rewarding one. I think about our project manager, Trish, and I think, the number of meetings that I'm in a day where account managers or designers or things will say something like, "Oh, like I couldn't live without her," or like, "Oh, she's such a champion," I think good project managers are often thought of that way in their company, and that they are a linchpin and that people genuinely really appreciate them.
Yeah, and like that feeling of like you've accomplished things and you've helped people accomplish things. I think it's like really rewarding. Yep.
Yeah.
Like any advice for prospective project managers for those who would want to like pursue a career in project management? Like any advice on how can they manage their teams effectively, particularly digital teams? Especially you mentioned like right now you're managing things remotely and you have like on-site staff as well. Like any advice for them?
Um, yeah, I think anything that allows you to be more organized is extremely important. And it sounds simple, but it can be something that's often overlooked. It's very easy to get swept up as a project manager. You're dealing with requests on an almost constant basis from account managers, management, all the resource that you're coordinating. So I think it's really important as a project manager to have a strategy for how you're going to take that feedback and commentary on, and then how you're going to prioritize it. Because managing your time is a huge part of your job, and understanding how and where to prioritize things. So I think building a system or a framework for yourself to manage your inbound requests and know yourself when you're checking things off, when that's been assigned, when that's been replied to. That might be using a project management tool, that might be using some sort of notes tool. There are plenty of things out there like Asana, or even like something like To-Do, which is a really simple free app where you just literally create to-do lists. Things like that for a project manager can actually be invaluable because it allows you to simplify and set priorities, give yourself some clarity within all the noise of all of those questions and requests that are coming at you. It gives you a place to filter and get everything down, and take the anxiety out of it a little bit, and know that you can just check through your list in the same way that you're trying to create that environment for the resource you're managing.
That's like good advice. Yep. So I guess like that's very valuable, and I'm sure like there's a lot of insights here. But I think Jason can answer like one or two questions for the audience. I think there's this one. Oh, there was this question regarding working from home and project management. Do you still perform the same performance working from home as compared to the usual office setup?
It's an interesting question. I think when we first transitioned during the early months of the pandemic, I'd say yes. In fact, I'd say some of our staff were probably even more productive once they were working from home. But I think that definitely sort of tapered off over time. Uh, but I think it's a very individual thing. I think the reality is that there's actually a big onus on companies to keep staff engaged while they're working from home, because it's a very challenging thing. It's very difficult, particularly in an environment like this, I think, where the working from home is actually sort of a forced thing, where the people that are working from home also don't have the luxury of just being able to go out. They're actually trapped, more or less, for lack of a better word, indoors. So I think there is actually a big onus on companies to be considering the mental health of their staff while they're in that situation, thinking about how can they create ways for their staff to still have a work-home life balance so that they can disengage at the end of their day, recharge, spend that personal time at home, and then come back to work and be highly effective. Something that I think some of our team have fallen in the trap of while working from home is working very long hours, and it tires you out and it burns you out, and it actually means that you become less effective in the 9 hours that you need to work. And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy of you end up doing 10 or 12 hours a day because you're less engaged and less effective in the hours that you're supposed to be working, and then you get further and further behind. So I guess on the broader question of can people be as effective working from home as they are in the office, I think absolutely, 100% people can be. Is it as easy to make people effective at home as it is to make them effective while they're in the office? I don't think so. I think that it's a lot harder for when you have a remote team to keep them engaged and motivated, because you're trying to bridge a natural gap that occurs compared to being in the office, where people can build camaraderie really easily just by having close proximity and being able to have conversations. You make jokes about like the water cooler, for example, but it's a genuine thing. People stand around coffee machines and water coolers and they talk about Game of Thrones and Seinfeld or The Simpsons, whatever it might be. And that sort of thing actually really does motivate and engage people when it comes to what they can do. So I think, yes, it's possible, but I think it is more difficult.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. I hope Jason was able to answer your question, Ethan, and thank you for that question. There was this question earlier about like the role of the project management in terms of, I think Jail actually asked that question, role of the project manager in terms of like scaling the business, how important it is, and like where does the project manager steps in scaling business?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's vital. So we actually we have forecasting tools that allow us to look at, time that we have and resources that we have available. We're a services-based business, right? We sell hours effectively. That's the product. And that hours might be hours for a graphic designer or a developer or a marketer, but the fundamental product that we sell is time. And when time is your product, project managers are vital. I mean, you literally cannot live without them. When it comes to forecasting, we sign 6 and 12-month contracts with a client. A project manager needs to be able to map out the work that's going to get done over that time and be able to proactively come to me and say, it's going to be March 1st on Monday. They should be able to tell me on June 30, we're out of hours. You're going to need to hire someone by this date, and it's going to take this long to get them skilled up. But I tell you now that we're going to need at least one more graphic designer and one more developer fully ready to work by June 30. And so we need to work backwards from that date in terms of a recruitment cycle. Now, yes, the sales team play an important role in that too, and the project manager, is maybe one piece of the puzzle. But at the end of the day, they're looking at that resourcing. They should be able to forward plan, knowing how long contracts are and hours and resource, and build reports that can give you a really good idea of, okay, like every single hour that this company currently owns is going to be booked in 6 weeks from now, I need to put my hand up to management and say something needs to happen.
That's good to hear. Yep. I think we have room for one more question for Love. Is that okay, Jason?
Yeah, of course.
Yep. So her question is like from a management perspective, what's the biggest pain point for digital marketing staff? What was her biggest pain point and problem?
It's a good question. Um, biggest. I think the biggest probably pain point is managing budgets. I think you have when a service gets sold, that's actually based off time that our project manager has given us. So our project managers are constantly looking at the tasks that we do and how long it takes to do them, and then we actually synthesize that time back into sales so that sales can then quote more accurately for future projects. But that is always an evolving process, and I think a big challenge for our project manager is constantly looking at those numbers and needing to be able to manage expectations with the sales team to say, that task, it might sound simple, but it actually takes 20 hours to do. And the salesperson might say, well, it's going to be really hard for me to sell it. Putting a $5,000 price on it is going to be really expensive. It's going to be hard to sell. And the project manager having to balance that line of speaking to the resource and saying, look, is it really going to be 20 hours, or could we do it in 18? And then maybe I can get some bit of wiggle room with the sales team. I think managing that flow, because at the end of the day, they're going to be accountable, right? If they then go and say, yeah, we get it done in 18 and then it takes 20 hours, I'm going to be asking the question of, well, what are we going to do about those extra 2 hours? Who's paying for that? So I think balancing that, particularly in our industry, it's very common, but I imagine it's the same for really any service-based industry. Finding that balance there, working with different teams to get realistic outcomes is probably a never-ending challenge that project managers face.
We have heaps of questions coming in, but I think that's about it. And again, I appreciate. Thank you, Jason, for answering those questions. I hope the people have learned who's here have learned a lot from you guys, and definitely like Trisha, who is working with Jason, can also give you more insights later. Yep. Thank you
Great.
for like attending, Jason, and thank you for
No
giving us
worries.
your insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Regan.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. So our next speaker, I hope like Jason was able to give you some insights, and I appreciate that there's a lot of questions coming in. So we'll put that. We'll see if we can just like put that in and like ask Trisha about it. Like our next speaker, who's a project manager in Anson. So yep, there's also like a question about like certificates. Yes, we will be sending out certificates for those attendees. So we're just gonna first introduce you to Trisha, who's a project manager in Anson. So definitely, she's been like doing really great in project management. So she can definitely give you some insights, especially for those aspiring project managers and current project managers or job shifters who plans to pursue a career in project management. Okay, let's just wait for Phil. So there you go. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, Regan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I guess we should start off by like probably introducing yourself to like our audience, like brief history about your work and like what do you do for Anzen and your team.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Trisha. I'm the project manager for Anzen. So basically, what I do is I coordinate the requests from the clients, from the account managers over to the production team. So making sure that everything's, I guess, ready and in place, and to get things done, and making sure that they're on time, that they submit on time, and that they work within the budgets given. As mentioned by Jason earlier, we really allocate like hours per task, and it's the most important thing that we have to really consider when doing our work. So that's the one of the things that I really monitor like on a day-to-day basis, just to make sure that we're within budget and we're not exceeding hours, or yeah. So basically that's it.
we're just curious, like Trisha, how long have you been doing project management?
To be honest, this is my first project management role. Previously, in my other agencies, I was actually doing client servicing and account management. So it's somehow similar, but I'm more in a client-facing role. So yeah, this is actually my first. It's for maybe about a year or so. Yeah.
Mhm. Why choose to like continue pursuing project management? Why did you choose to work on project management?
Yeah. So throughout the years that I've been doing client servicing, I figured that I wanted to, I guess, be more like a team player. And I figured that because am very organized and like very obsessive compulsive with things, and I want to make sure that everything's in process, following the process, and I really like doing operational work, to be honest. So I figured that project management is more in line with the career that I want to take, which is why I figured that when I leave my previous agency, that was something that I really wanted to like pursue for the coming year. So that's when I learned about Anzen, and then I spoke to Efren about it, and like we just discussed with him the things that I enjoy doing, and yeah, so that role opened up for me, and it's really been great so far.
Yep. Yep. And even Jason mentioned like organization is very important
Yeah.
if you are a project manager. Having said that, like, can you give like tips or like tools that you usually use in project management to like up make sure that your work is optimal and you keep track of like what you're doing?
Right. So Jason mentioned that we're using Asana now, and to be honest, it's the first tool that I've explored using. We did try Traffic Live in my previous agency, but it wasn't actually used for project management per se. It was more for like financial stuff. So seeing all the hours that were consumed by the team. But in Asana, it's more, I guess, organized. So it really helps the team like get a clear picture of what they need to do, when they need to do it, how much hours they have allocated to finish that task. So it's really, really organized, and it's clear what the next steps are, what the processes are. So what we do is the task per project is broken down. So like for example, from strategy to brief to copy to design. So it's really clear what the next steps are, and anyone can easily navigate through Asana. And for example, if I'm not in the office, and the team would have to like coordinate with the account manager directly, it's easy for them to really just see, okay, what's next. Okay, after this, it needs to go to the designer. So it's very clear and organized. So I think Asana would be the best tool that I'd say other project managers can use for their future work or for their current work.
That's good tips. Like since you've been doing project management or probably you've worked with other organization before, like what do you feel is like the difference working on doing project management locally versus like working for Anzen, which is like an
Right.
international company? Like any difference or
Um,
anything that aspiring project managers would need to look at as well and work on?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't think there's that much difference between local or international companies. I think the only thing notable that's different from local working at a local and international is the tools that we use. So in my previous agency, it was more traditional and manual, I would say. So what we do is we do face-to-face briefings. Sometimes we even print the briefs or the job orders, and that's what the production team would use to actually proceed with their tasks. Whereas now it's all very digital. So we have access to everything, like even from the conversation between this person and that person. Even if I wasn't included in that initial conversation, I would be able to see it through Asana, which is really very helpful, to be honest, because um, I think what I've learned from my previous agency is that sometimes when a work is passed on to you and you don't have any background about it, it's really hard to like proceed with anything. Sometimes it's really good that you have context about everything. So I think Asana and like being digital with everything, even access to all the files is really very important. So I think that's the only notable thing that's different from working at a local and international company.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the way you say it, I think it's better, it's more efficient to work in an international
Yeah, it really
environment,
is.
right?
Yeah, that's true. It really is. I think if people just really started to like try other processes, I think it's also because people get used to the normal processes or the usual traditional way of working, like doing it via email and stuff like that. I think once they get to actually really try tools like Asana and other project management tools, it'll be really, really helpful, and probably even be more efficient with everything, from doing client servicing to doing production stuff.
Uh, what do you enjoy about your work, and like what do you hate about your work, for lack of a better term, as a project
Mhm.
manager?
Um, well, I mentioned earlier that I'm a very detail oriented person, and I like organizing things. So I think um, being able to like manage everything and organize everything for the team, and making things easier and better for them to proceed with whatever work that they're tasked to do, that's the most enjoyable thing that I'd like doing. And I guess I can try to like give an example. Like, if I'm sure everybody's or most of the people are familiar with Among Us. So I think that's a good example, for doing project management stuff. So of course it's minus the killing the suspects and stuff like that. But so in Among Us, you really have to like tick off tasks and make sure that you maintain order in the ship. And that's where sometimes I see myself doing. Like, I'm making sure that, okay, we have to do this and do that and do this to make sure that the client's happy, that the account manager's happy, and that we're doing whatever work was assigned to us. Yeah, so I think that's the most enjoyable thing that I'm doing right now as a project manager. And the least would probably be, I guess, sometimes it gets crazy, at least on the project management side, because when multiple clients suddenly have urgent stuff to do, you have to juggle in between, you have to coordinate between the account manager, the designer, the copywriter, and just make sure that everything's in place, and that once we move this, we have to move this as well, and manage the expectations of the account manager and the client. But yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's something that I hate. It's just something that's really challenging on my part, especially since I'm the only one like coordinating between the account manager and the production team. But yeah, I think that's the most challenging. It's not really something that I really hate doing.
Well, it is what it is, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you encounter that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that Trisha is able to manage her team effectively and like execute things successfully. Uh, like one last question from me, Trisha. Like, do you have like any tips for aspiring project managers? Like any competencies that they need to work on if they want to be successful in their career as a project manager?
hmm Um, well, I think for me, it's really important for a project manager to be organized, and communication is very, very important as well, especially now that we're all working from home because of the pandemic. Um, it's really important that you coordinate with the people that you need to be talking to, especially when there's anything that's unclear in the briefs that were given to you. Um, what else? I guess yeah, and getting to know the team better, because I think Jason mentioned earlier that it's really important to know like who's the best person to do this or to assign this work to. So I think from the past year and the past few months that I've been working with the team, I've really gotten to know them better, like in terms of their work styles. Of course, all of us have different work styles, and that's one of the things that I really consider when I assign work to them. Like, as Jason mentioned earlier, like for example, if there's this task that we really need to do in an hour or an hour and a half, then I'd have to really strategize and think, okay, is it better to assign this to this person just to make sure that we meet that deadline, or just to make sure that we meet the hours that were allocated for this one? So yeah, getting to know the team better, communication, and just being organized. Those are the three things that I think are vital for being a project manager.
Oh, those are like really good insights. Yeah, I guess we should like proceed with like if the audience has like several questions. I just happened to see an interesting question that I think you're the best person that can answer this, because like
Mhm.
you've mentioned before that you shifted from a different role and client service and those things, and then project manager. There's a question from one of our audience asking like, how does a project manager differ from other business management position, or and is there any advantage or disadvantage as compared to like other managerial position?
Um, Well, project manager is definitely more an internal thing. So it's just really making sure that you keep things moving. And whenever work is passed on to you, you just make sure that it's all progressing differently. What the difference is between my role now and my previous role, like the account manager, it's yeah, more client facing. So it's really you that have to that has to face the client and manage their expectations. And you really have to be, I guess, a people person as well when you become an account manager, because like you have different, I guess you talk to different people. You talk to the clients, and sometimes you even talk to their suppliers. But being a project manager, I guess it's more isolated in a sense that you get to talk to your team more than like managing or thinking about um, the external people that you have to deal with.
All right, that's good. Yep. And there's another question coming from Danny. So it's just a curious question. If you're not a project manager now, what would you have been instead?
Miss Universe. No, I'm just kidding. What would I be? Well, I've always loved to. I've always loved, I guess, like watching cooking shows and stuff like that. So I think if I was able to pursue something in culinary, then I'd probably be a chef. Um, but I know that's something that I can actually still do, like after office hours and do cooking. But sometimes, I don't know. I guess I just have to find time to actually really do it. But yeah, I think I would be a chef.
I can't wait to sample your culinary expertise, Trisha. Yep. I guess we have room for one more question from Janine Lopez. Hello, Miss Speaker. As a project manager, how do you deal with time pressure? I'm sure you do. You deal with this every time, right? So how do you
Yeah.
deal with it?
Um, I guess learning how to prioritize things is really important. So, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes it gets crazy on my end when things are like suddenly everything's urgent, or we need to attend to this and attend to that. So I make sure that I have this list and like um, note myself, okay, I have to work on this first and then this one next. And then sometimes it's important also to set a time for yourself. Like, for example, this certain task, you only have 1 hour to work on it. And then you really have to make sure that you work within that time. And anything that needs to be, like, if you need to work on it more than an hour, then I guess you reshuffle your priorities and see, okay, is it worth my time to actually just continue doing this? But then this will have to be pushed back. So I guess strategizing the things that you have to do is important as well.
Those are very valuable insights. Now I'm thinking of like shifting career as a project manager. So, yep, yep. Thank you for your time, Trisha. I'm sure like our audience have learned a lot from you, and we appreciate you sharing your insights. And thanks a lot, Trisha. Yep.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you. Thank
me.
you. So
Bye.
thank you guys for joining our session. Again, feel free to visit our career page. We have hirings for project managers, developers, and other uh, job openings. Also, we will have another session, live session at 6 p.m. This time it's for developers. If you're interested, feel free to uh, look it up and join us later. And we will have like regular sessions, live events that would like help you guys learn and explore the careers that you would want to go through. Just don't forget to like our page and just always check on our page. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate the time, and I hope you've learned from our guest speakers. Thanks. Bye.